This Choircast podcast episode is brought to you by the book Letting Go, How I Failed Gay Conversion Therapy and Learned to Love Myself by Aaron Simnowitz. In this book, I take the reader on my journey as I navigate the controversial divide between the evangelical church and homosexuality. This book gives readers just one example of a life that was tortured by gay conversion therapy and how it is possible to come out on the other side of self-acceptance. You can pick up this book at Amazon.com right now.
Hey, heathens, you're listening to the Deadly Faith Podcast where religion and crime collide. I'm Lacey.
And I'm Lola.
And this shit is crazy.
The mind that was in Jesus, that mind is in me.
Without me, life has no meaning.
Why would God tell you what I'm thinking and tell you what I've said to my wife or my husband when you're not around? It's because I'm the pastor of the church and I need to know.
This is the only place where you can see truth.
Hey, guys, I'm so excited to bring you guys one of the coolest people I've ever gotten to meet through researching church, crime, cults, all that kind of fun stuff. And Serena, you guys have heard of her because we mentioned her in the episode a couple weeks back when I introduced Lola to the awful cult that is the Children of God, now known as like the Family International. So Serena is here with us today and we get to ask her a ton of questions. So everyone, welcome Serena.
Serena. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Of course.
Oh my
We're
gosh.
so happy that you're here. So honored that you agreed to do this with us. Really.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Your shows are insane. I've listened to some of them and these stories. Yeah. And insane stories that even I haven't heard of, which is crazy.
Wow. Because I think it's crazy because like every cult that I've researched so far, they're wild in their own ways. This is the one that impacted me the most because I have experience as a childhood sexual assault victim, nowhere near the level that any one of you guys dealt with or have experienced. But because we have that I feel like because I have that shared trauma, that it just impacted me very differently than any of the other cults that I've looked into. And it's just wild. So I have 1,000,001 questions for you, like you saw in the email I sent.
Lola, we did it down. We've narrowed it down a bit though, okay? I loved the questions in the email too. Normally it's just rapid fire going everywhere. So yeah, it's very organized.
Thank you. Thank you. Lola has a couple too, which hers are really good questions. She emailed me earlier and I was like,
they're not gonna like throw you against a wall and
no.
They're nothing like that.
They go with the flow of things. But for those who are listening and have not listened to the episode, The Children of God, you are going to need to go back and listen to that episode because we are not going to give you a rundown on the cult here. We're not going to make Serena relive everything. You can go just listen to that episode and get caught up and then come back. So how did you like it? You hated it? That's okay. We did too. That was a hard episode. We know. Hey, heathens, we are interrupting this episode for a message from our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Javy. If you have not tried Javy, you're missing out. It is coffee concentrate and they come in different flavors. So you can get the original, you can get caramel brulee. That's the one I'm drinking right now. And oh my God, it's so good. They also have mocha and French vanilla and a couple other ones. It's so delicious. You get this little scooper. You just need 1 teaspoon of the coffee concentrate into your drink. And if you want it stronger, you can do 2. I definitely do 2. And each teaspoon is a serving, and each serving has 60 milligrams of caffeine. So you're still getting all the caffeine and all the benefits from the coffee.
Good Lord.
Oh yeah. And you can make it any way you want. You can do hot, you can do iced, you can do cappuccinos or whatever the fuck you want. You can do
hot bean
anything.
Juice.
Yes.
Hot bean juice.
Or cold bean juice. You
cold
just get your
juice.
good bean juice.
What are you worried about? It's bean juice.
It's bean juice.
What are you worried about?
Get you some bean juice. It is so freaking good. I'm addicted now. I have not turned on my coffee pot all week because I've literally only been making these and they're so delicious. I add caramel and vanilla into my caramel brulee. It's good. It's a great way to start your morning. So if you guys want to get you some and save 15%, use code LACY, LACI 33468. Yes, that is your discount code. And I'm very sorry. We are trying to get it changed to Deadly Faith. But in the meantime,
please enjoy.
Just roll with us and use code LACY 33468 for 15% off. Links will be in the show notes or description box below. Now back to the episode. but we're here to chat with Serena. So let's get into it. So my first question is, how in the fuck did your mom and dad get involved in this group? I'm so curious.
Yeah, I was very curious myself. And before I cut contact with my parents, I actually had a conversation with my mom in 2019. And I just was like, explain to me how this happened. Because my mom came from a very good family in Dallas. She was part of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders in '68, like the first ones on the team. She went to
oh my God, that's iconic.
Yeah.
Whoa.
She's like full on upstanding family. Her dad was a part of like a preacher. They owned racehorses. They had a ranch. She came from a wonderful family.
Wow.
And short story is she got into drugs as it always does happen with these situations, vulnerable situation. And she says that she was walking to her drug dealer's boyfriend's house one day and she had heard a voice in her head saying, run. So she ran. She didn't go back to the house. It was that same time that the FBI raided the house and put everybody in jail on drug trafficking charges. So she believes that Jesus saved her. So she was subsequently later on going to UT trying to clean up her life when she met the children of God singing in the campus.
No.
Yeah.
It's so hard growing up in Dallas, I'm sure. It is steeped. You're in Texas, so it's steeped in religion. I'm from Texas, born and raised, and so I completely understand.
Oh, you know.
I know how much religion is like, if you're not Christian, then like, what the hell are you? You know, like you're one of the denominations within Christianity, at least. So I can understand that like you're already kind of primed for that, believing that like, oh, that was God saving me and not, that was my own intuition. And like, kudos to me for listening to myself. Instead, it's constantly giving the glory and the credit to God or to a higher power instead of ourselves.
Always.
And so I can see how that would prime somebody to just kind of step into it. So she got into this not married or anything at this time?
Right. She actually met my dad right away. He was one of the people one of the first people that he met in one of their big communes in Dallas. And she was the FBI was still looking for other people and she was kind of trying to go to college and lay low. So when they said, hey, we're having these mission trips to Europe, you have to go 2 by 2, but you have to get married. Literally, that's how my parents got married. It was not love or, this beautiful relationship. It was like, oh, you're a guy, I'm a girl. Because when the family started the cult, it was a very pious Christian group. It was very nice. That's why people join. People don't join a cult like,
exactly.
I'm going to join a cult and abuse children today.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So they were like, you have to go 2 by 2, a man and a woman for safety. And so that's how my parents got married. That's literally how it started. And my mom saw a way out and she said she felt love. She believed, just like you said, it was Jesus's voice in her head telling her to run. She ended up in college and then she met the children of God. So she believed it was Jesus guiding her through all these steps. And she just kept believing that. She's in her 70s and she still believes it. So,
you kind of answered my question about your mom. I was going to ask, do you have anything to do with your mom now?
No.
Or what does that look like?
Oh, okay. No.
Can I ask when that came about, like the estrangement, like when that happened?
She kind of, as each of my sisters and I left, she pretty much just cut us off. When I left the cult, she gave me $15 and she said I was going to the US. She was in Mexico. She's like, if you leave this house, you're never coming back. And I was like, promise? Yeah, I'm never coming back.
Fuck yeah.
And she gave me $15 and put me on a plane to Texas. So that's kind of been her modus operandi. She didn't raise us either. So we were just never close. She never had that motherly thing. She was always a top leader trying to climb this cult hierarchy ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just kind of the children she just happened to have along the way. So there's never been a relationship with her. I was always in contact, but the cutting off of contact happened a couple years ago. And I've spoken to her 1 or 2 times since, and the last time was truly just the last time. Like, it's just, it's good riddance at this point.
Hey, I hear you.
Yeah. And that just goes to show that how hard it is to even cut off somebody who is she's your mom. Like, she gave birth to you.
Yeah.
But yet she wasn't there. You were raised by the cult. She, was doing her own thing. She treated you in such this horrific way of just like, if you leave, you're never coming back. And yet it's still, we have that innate just desire to like have that kind of relationship with our parents. And so even for you to cut that off is such a hard thing to do for anybody. And I feel for you. Lola can understand what you're going through.
Commend you in your service. Thank you for your service. All children that are estranged from parents, we bow to you,
Yes.
Queen.
Yeah. I mean, and it didn't come without a lot of healing and a lot of me wanting to understand and explain things and conversations with her. Like, it was a lot of stuff. And other people I know they left the cult and that was it. And they just cut off contact. But for me, it was really important to heal the spiritual relationship, the emotional relationship between me and my mother without, without being like, oh, I want to have a mommy relationship and call my mom and talk about, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And I think people who have only done a lot of therapy and gone through a healing process with their parents will understand there is a forgiveness aspect, but it's the same. Like, I can forgive, but I'm not going to forget. And
yes. Agreed.
And I don't feel safe. You've put people in danger, and then I hold you accountable, and you're not even going to admit anything. You're not even going to acknowledge the experiences that we went through. So why do I have to have someone like that in my life? And it was just a pretty easy decision for me.
Yeah, because you can forgive and still set boundaries.
Exactly.
Forgiveness does not mean that you don't need to, you don't have to, or you can't set boundaries.
Yeah.
So
those are some beautiful boundaries you're drawing there. I admire
Thank you.
Strong. So
thanks. I've been practicing.
I'm going to go a little random here, but did you know? Well, okay. First, before we get into those questions, not everybody knows a whole lot of your story. So you were born, and then when you were the age, correct me if I'm wrong, 3, correct? You were promised to David Berg, a man in his, like, at this time, I don't know, 80s, 70s?
Late 60s.
Late 60s.
Yeah. He was born in 1919.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to leave the country. Goodbye.
That sounds awful. You were promised, and he gave you a ring? Or
yes, he did.
Your mom gave you.
I was promised to him before birth. I was given to him at 3 by my mother, who took me to him as a child bride, literally. It was a whole ceremony, and I didn't know what was happening. They dressed me up in a beautiful dress and everything, and Berg in the Philippines. So I was born in the cult leader's home. I was born in Berg's household, which was a secret household.
Oh my God.
And after my 3rd birthday, and I thought my birthday party was just like continuing because they dressed me up in a nice dress. And Berg lived in a different house on the commune property. And we were only allowed to go to this house on invitation. He literally lived like a king.
Of course he did.
In the property. And he would summon people to come to his little house on the property. And so, I remember my mom like, we're going to go see Grandpa. What I was told kids called him Grandpa, and then the parents called him Dad. That was, those were his names. Yeah. And that's what everybody called him. Every single child in the cult grew up calling him Grandpa, and every adult was like, oh, Dad. And Mama, Karen Zerby, his wife, was Mama. So it was Dad and Mama. Yeah. And it's
a whole nother level of creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. She took me to his house. He was sitting on a big chair that he called his throne. He would literally walk around with a staff. He only wore robes and really flimsy boxers. He was naked all the time.
Oh.
Yeah. And she put me on his lap. Yeah. It just gross, groping. Yeah. And there was a smell to him that I really detested as a child. And only in my adult life, I would smell like old alcohol breath or something. Like if you wake up the next day and you can smell someone's out. And I was like, ugh, like, what is that?
Oh
and
my
I realized it was alcohol because he was a raging alcoholic the whole time, which is so ironic because alcohol was not allowed.
I was just about to say, alcohol was not allowed, right? Because like I read the book Sex Cult Nun, and I was like, I'm pretty sure in there she said no alcohol.
The rules did not apply to leaders of the cult, as these things always go.
Always.
Yeah, and he put the ring on my finger. It was too big for my hand because I was 3. And he goes, okay, we're going to wrap tape around it. So he took the band and kept wrapping tape around the band until the tape made the ring big, small and thicker so it would fit on my 3-year-old finger. And he was like, as you grow up, you can take the tape off so the ring will always fit you. And I have the ring still and it fits on my pinky finger.
I was going to ask where it is.
Yeah, I have it, but I don't wear it, of course.
Of course. I am lost for words because I knew the story, but not in that much detail. And so there's so much more instead of like you were given to him or promised to him. There's so much more that's going on in that sentence that like you can't describe.
I think our understanding was that you were promised and that you weren't actually handed over.
Yeah.
Yet. That's what I understood from the story.
Wow.
That puts it on a whole new level.
Yeah.
By your mother, your own.
By my mom.
If you don't mind me saying, but I think your mother's a piece of shit. I don't know her, but
pretty terrible.
I think that she's bad.
Yeah. I have no nice things to say.
Yeah.
Not a one. Cause I can't imagine having such a strong foundation that she had growing up. I can understand getting into drugs. It happens. You know, I get that.
Yes.
I can understand getting into a cult. I get that. But to go so
You
far,
did that.
I did that, you know, been there, done that.
You did.
Got my ticket, got the trauma to prove it. But going so far as to approve of pedophilia and hand my child over to the disaster of a man that is David Berg, the cognitive dissonance that she had to have had and still has apparently to this day, I don't understand.
I mean, she incriminated herself. It's no secret. She's probably, after David Berg and Karen Zerbe, Sarah Kelly is the most infamous leader of the cult. She literally wrote the Davidito book, which is an entire book of child abuse. And she put out photos and wrote a whole book for the whole world to see. And
she wrote that
she wrote that. She actually wrote a lot of different books in the cult. She was very proud of being a successful cult writer. And that really turned out well for her.
I'm sure. The Mo letters, is that what you're referencing?
That we had different things. The Mo letters were written all by Berg, but we had a teen series, Heaven's Girl series, like other stories about raising children. And she wrote a lot of the educational, quote unquote, material for how to raise children. And the Davidito book was one of these first books, which was David Berg's adopted son, Ricky Rodriguez. And she literally wrote the book of explaining why children should be sexually active starting at 3 years old and photos and just disgusting. Yeah, absolutely disgusting. And even when I asked her about it, I was like, but why would you do that? And then put it out in a book for the world to see. And she was like, oh, because it made Grandpa happy.
Okay.
And I was like, that's how she talks. Like she will still call him Grandpa and Dad. That's how far gone she is in her head.
Oh my gosh.
She goes, oh, Dad asked me to. I was like, Dad, like our dad asked you to? She's like, no, Dad, Grandpa. Like she can't even say David Berg. Like that's literally how she talks. And I'm just like, wow, like we can't even have a conversation because this is way too far gone for you.
Yeah. And if anybody ever goes and looks up the Davidito book, I'm just going to give you a massive trigger warning. I read one page and then I had to put it away and I can't get through any more of it. I don't want to get through any more of it because that was just the very beginning of Ricky's life. And I can't imagine how much worse it got over the years. But so just a trigger warning, research at your own risk. Read those pages at your own risk. But
yeah, definitely.
Wow. So you knew where David Berg was the whole time because you lived
I lived
in the same area.
I lived in the property with him.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had 2 houses on the property. There was the big house where the rest of the people from the commune were, and the small house where Berg lived with Davidito and Techi and Mama Maria. And that was their little palace that nobody could go disturb. And at the time, Karen Zerbe was already going blind. So you would go in the house and it was super dark and dingy and kind of like gross and smelly and stuff. It was just a weird...
I know. I was just about to say, I had no idea she's blind.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Yeah. She has this strange eye condition where she couldn't, she would go blind in brighter lights. And it started very early on in the 80s. And she's pretty much fully blind now. And we had to have prayer meetings and fasting and praying for her. Like my entire childhood, all we were doing every year was fasting and praying for Berg to get better of his liver disease. Wonder where that was coming from.
Oh, geez.
And Mama Maria's eyesight.
Oh my gosh. That's like praying for your burn to heal while like still holding your hand on
the lighter.
Hot plate, oh my gosh. So Karen Zerbe, she's still alive. Mama Maria, Karen Zerbe, same person, right?
Yes. Mama Maria, Karen Zerbe. Yep.
Is she still living in the same compound, like in the Philippines, or has she moved? Do you know?
Oh, they're somewhere in Central America. That they move around all the time. So yeah, I mean, I've stopped keeping tabs on them long ago. I just couldn't be bothered. I just don't care. But yeah, we moved around in the Philippines, but I was in Manila the entire time. We left to Japan before they did, and then they also came to Japan, and they had a secret property in Japan close to the commune that we were living in. So we would go see them in Japan. And then from there, my family moved to Brazil and they stayed in Japan. And then they went over to places like Canada, Portugal. Like we were constantly, every year we were moving because authorities and people were always looking for us.
Right. Understandably.
God, that's so stressful.
Yeah. And I think it's so crazy that like you were so close to David Berg. You saw him throughout your childhood.
Yeah.
And yet the book Sex Cult Nun, I'm drawing a blank on the author, but she also grew up and she is an actual grandchild, like a blood grandchild of David Berg. So her dad is one of David Berg's sons.
Yeah.
And she never met David Berg in real life, ever. She never saw him. And so it's just crazy to me the secrecy that he didn't even come out or invite his own like blood grandchildren out to see him.
All his relationship dynamics are just very like abstract to me.
Well, and so fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, he was just left the US was literally because the FBI was onto him because of all the prostitution going on, the FFing and the flirty fishing and these weird, it started getting into the weird orgy situations and stuff going on. And he wrote this whole letter saying Jesus told him, I got a split. That's what his Mo letter was called. Like,
yes,
we all have to leave America, the whore. We're all going to be in jail. Like America's going to burn when Jesus comes back in 1986 or whatever his random date was. We're all going to leave. Baby. Then it was 93. Then it was 96. And he died.
Oh, they're always... The goalpost is always moving with these people.
Yeah.
Always.
But the whole
reason
he left was because he couldn't get away with the shit that he was getting away with before in the US because the US was tightening their security. So where does he go? To Asia and a bunch of third world countries where he's just got like free reign and can run around and it's easy to pay off authorities. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. He took advantage of the socioeconomic of those countries to fit his nasty ass sick desires.
Yep.
So what year did you leave the cult?
I left at 18. So that was 2002. ish or so. Yeah. So I just passed recently my 20-year anniversary being outside of the cult.
Round of applause.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow,
Yeah,
20
massive,
years. Woo.
massive milestone. Yeah.
Huge.
Yes.
Yeah. I tried leaving. So that was when I was 18 and I knew that my parents couldn't have any control over me. I did try leaving at 17. But then there were some issues, and legally I was kind of just running around in a campground in California. So I did have to fully rejoin the family and go back. And I was kind of known by that time as a bad girl. And because of my status, I was Mary Dear in the cult, and all the kids' books, the whole Life of Grandpa series had Davidito, Techi, Mary Dear, and my older sister, Davida. So kids in the cult grew up reading stories about us. We were literal celebrities. Like, kids would bring their life with grandpas to me for me to sign them.
Wow.
And sign my notebook. And so I would walk around and everyone's like, oh, it's Mary Dear. And I was always Serena, but my cult publication name was Mary Dear. But then when word got around that I was kind of rebelling and going down the wild child path, people didn't really want anything to do with me. So I was kind of passed around in different communes and given really strict punishments, told a lot, everyone's watching you. If you don't do this, you're not going to have any friends. We're going to lock you up in this. A lot of different threats. So I knew at 17, like, it was just a waiting game at that point. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to Mexico. I'm going to pretend to be like all on fire for God, as they called it in the cult, and sacrificial, use all of their terminology. And it totally worked because my mom is a top leader. So I learned from the best on cognitive dissonance and manipulation and lying. So I just used their own tactics on them. And when it came time for prayer and prophecy, which was stuff that I really didn't subscribe to, the whole praying and hearing from other, like the spirit helpers and like figuring out your latest demons. And I was like, I would love to record the prophecies, because they would record everything with a little dictaphone. There were no cell phones really back then, and have someone type them out and transcribe them. And then everyone was like supposed to read them. It was just all like constant input of just random brainwash material. So I was just like, I'm feeling really called to record all of these things in the prayer and prophecy sessions. I would just love to do that. And they were like, oh, you're so sacrificial. Thank you so much. And I was like, yeah, I'm just really feeling called
I am.
to do that.
That's
and
so
I just
good.
sit there in the middle of the living room with my dictaphone, and then there would be some adult about to get a prophecy from, I don't know, Abraham or something. And they're like, clear their throat. And I'd like cry
Oh my God.
with the dictaphone, stick it in their face, press record.
Oh my God.
They'd say their random stupid prophecy that you just know they're just making it up out of their ass.
Absolutely.
And then I'd just record them all and be like, yeah, I think there. And people would come up to me like, you have a real gift. Like, every time I feel the spirit talking through me, you're right there. And I was like, yeah, I just really feel this is my calling.
I love it. And you're like, I'm blowing smoke up all y'all's
I
asses.
was like, that's so fucking stupid. But as long as I'm not forced to give some stupid prayer and prophecy, like, this is my way out.
Yeah, it was a survival tactic for you in order to like make it until you could actually leave, like legally.
That's the whole thing.
Okay, I wanna ask, since leaving, what has been the best part of the healing journey for you? If you could classify anything as the best part.
Oh, literally what I'm doing right now. The whole reason I even started healing and doing therapy and the insane amount of work that I've done on myself is because all I wanted to do was to be able to talk about my life truthfully and stop lying, because I made up so many lies when people would ask me like, I've lived in all these countries. Oh, are you an army brat? Oh, yeah. Or like, oh, my parents worked for the Red Cross, like random things. They're just like lies on top of lies. And then I wanted to be able to talk truthfully, and I wanted to talk about my life without bursting into tears. And those were two things that I could not do. I could literally not say a single word about my childhood or my family without crying. And that that stopped only like 2019 after my first year of doing therapy. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to start talking about my life. And it's just kind of grown from there. But that's one thing. But one of the other things that I did not expect from my healing journey, and thank you for asking that question, because a lot of people just want to hear about my childhood when there's just so much more to it. So I really appreciate this question.
Of course. Yeah. Your path is so much bigger than what it was then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There's so much more to talk about. And so many times we feel like something has happened to us and it only has happened to us. And it's like a deep, dark, dirty secret. But I've found that the more that I talk about my life, it allows other people to open up and be able to talk about things that have happened to them. And while, yes, my story is very extreme, there are parts of my story that relate to everyone. And the amount of information people have shared with me, like, oh, my uncle abused me, I was almost kidnapped. Like, there's so many instances of abuse that kids were just told to shut up and not talk about and be quiet that people have not dealt with. Murders, extreme religion, anything. And it helps people realize that they're not alone. And it can feel like such an isolating experience when you don't talk about it. But the more that I talk about it, the more people have come to me and shared things. And I think that's a really powerful tool, because as soon as you stop giving secrets power, and I'm not saying everyone come out with all their secrets. I'm just saying, for me,
I'm following you.
Yeah, yes. I have to clarify, because I said this one time and I was like, what? But
you're like, no.
But the secrets gave power. The secrets had the power in my story, and I was not in control. And as soon as I shone the light on my deepest, darkest secrets, it took me years to accept that I was a child bride. Truly, like, it just felt so dirty and gross to say, but it's part of my story, and that's literally what happened. And now it's out, and I have control over my story, and I own the narrative, and it's not up to them and like the stupid bullshit that they're going to twist and turn. And I just don't care if somebody calls me a liar and embellishing or a narcissist, all these random things that I've been called since speaking out. But the amount of people that it's helped outwardly and inwardly, I think that's been one of the best things about this healing journey and process.
Yes, I love that. And I can't agree with you more. And I'm sure Lola feels the same way, but both of us, came from high control religion, nothing compared to like what you've been through. But personally, I've experienced the exact same journey when I started telling my story, and I started deconstructing in real time on TikTok, and people started coming along the journey with me. And I can't tell you how many times I had people come to me and tell me, and I still get it today. We get it on our podcast, like constantly, comments or messages of thank you for telling these stories. You make me feel less alone, because our trauma that we go through, especially within our childhood, we make it feel that we are the only ones. Like, we feel so lonely in this trauma that we're the only ones that this happened to, when in reality, a lot of this stuff is more common than you think, unfortunately. And by us giving the voice to it and bringing it to light brings just, it tears off the veil, and it shines light on it, and people come in and like, oh my gosh, it's not just me. And then you start building this community, and it's just, yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Amen, my brethren in Christ.
Amen. Hallelujah, Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Okay. I can't remember what my next question was. It's on, so on your healing journey. So if you didn't hear in the last episode when we talked about this, how I met Serena, or how I found her, was I was Googling, and researching the children of God, and I came across.
It is so wild to me that you actually made this connection.
It
still blows my mind. It's amazing. I love this. So I'm reading up on her story, and I get to the end, and it talks about her being certified in trauma recovery. And I was like, what the fuck? Because there's not a lot of places that are like certified trauma recovery, places. So I went over to my association. I was I think I was currently going through the certification or I had just finished it. I can't remember.
You said, you were currently
doing it. Okay. So I went to the directory and I'm going through the whole thing and I find her and I was like, shut your face. I'm like, it's the same person. And then that, our association, you have links to everybody. And so I found her on social media and I quickly messaged her because I was like, this is the coolest connection I've ever made. So,
Lacey is the quickest to slide in somebody's DMs.
Oh, it's amazing.
I will slide in your DMs. Not in a creepy way, but I will slide in your DMs.
Respectfully, consensually.
Yes. I was like, what? You're doing it too? It's just so cool because it's an amazing program and it's so robust.
It really is.
And Bobby is just such an incredible teacher too. And you can tell like she's just so passionate about what she does and she's fighting so hard to get it internationally recognized and those credits to actually go towards other official programs. So I just love being a part of this, this group that we've got.
So when did you go, what made you what made you decide to go and get certified in trauma recovery and how did you find the association?
Yeah, I had already had my degree. So I have a good mix of spirituality and logical, I need that science spirituality balance. So I spent a lot of time in 2019. After I got laid off from my job, I was like, what are some next steps? Should I get another job? Should I do something? So I researched a bunch of certifications like trauma recovery because I just really believe education is important if you're going to, promote yourself as someone who is helping others. It's important to have some sort of education to learn how to go about it.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I've just, there's so many of coaches out there and things who just like wake up one day and are a coach and that's good for them. But I do believe putting in the work and, kind of applying yourself is big in my book. And
and especially in the field of trauma, you kind of need to know it, at least how this is affecting your body and things to do. There's things you got to learn.
There's things absolutely, and I learned so much in that program. So I did a few weeks of research trying to figure out what was the most accredited source, and it just turned out that the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaches seemed to be the best one to take. And I saw it was a 6-month-long program with a really robust test at the end, and a lot of books, a lot of data, a lot of studies, required reading. Some of the best books on trauma too that I've read through that course. So I was really happy to find that course and all the research and the books and the reading and the education that was required in order to get the certification. So that's how I landed on that. Because for me, just coming out and being like, I'm going to talk about trauma, but there was so much that I knew I was lacking and that I needed in the form of education and how to present, like, what exactly am I doing? And what is this? What does it mean? What is trauma recovery?
Yeah.
So being able, and what are the different modalities to use? So being able to learn from that was really, really special. I still have a lot of my notes in my storage.
I have all of them. I literally still have all of them.
Good.
They're so good. I still have all the books. I absolutely love it.
Good.
I've stopped coaching because I'm in school now. I only have like my current clients, and one is about to, my one that's been with me since the very beginning of my coaching, he's about to graduate. I'm like, my heart couldn't be more happy for him. I'm so excited. But same, like, it's so funny because I feel like our stories are very similar in that sense of like, once we finally started giving, light to our story and started talking about it and then wanting to help others and realizing like other people want the help and the courage to like walk through this and process through it. Mine was, I'm going to go back to school to be a psychologist. But then I was like, that's a lot of money. And I'm already $45,000 worth of debt in my degree. And so I'm like, nope, I'm good. And so then I found it through a couple of our coaches, or a girl, Kelly. I don't know if you've met her yet. She's another coach. And we are mutuals on TikTok, and she's been through deconstruction and stuff. And so me and her did some research. We actually went through the course together, but I agree. It's just an amazing, and we'll link it all below in the show notes if you guys want to check it out. They have 2 semesters a year, and I think it's still the same way, but there is like, there's accreditations. You have to take a test. You have, what is it called?
There's mock sessions. There's mock sessions of coaching too, that you're coaching your mentors.
So much practice.
Yeah.
And that was invaluable. They have like a couple different kinds of sessions throughout the week, even when you are a coach, where you can go and like get advice and tips. I'm like blanking on the name of those right now, but it's amazing. And we'll link it all below. So that's good. Yeah. So what do you still coach right now? Is it something that you still kind of practice in?
I do on the side. I don't advertise it at all. In the last few years, my clients have come strictly from referrals or people just reaching out through my website. At this point, there's been a space. I do have to take breaks from trauma recovery coaching because for my own mental health as well.
Yes.
And COVID, yes. I was like, done. This person and everybody
yes.
trauma. And it really burned me out. So
yeah,
2021, I took a long break. And then the next year, I started taking clients who reached out to me. And then we'd have a discovery call. So yeah, it's just very light. I'll take 1 or 2 clients here, but I love doing it. And it's so helpful. And when you find, as you obviously know, when you find the right client for you, the right person, it's
yes.
just the relationship is so beautiful and so wonderful.
It really is.
Honestly, you are like in touch forever, pretty much. Like I'm still
yes.
in contact with all my first clients, and they'll still reference things even to this day. Remember when you said in 2019?
Yeah.
Like I still remember that. I'm like, yes.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I agree. It's very heavy, and I'm in school right now for cardiovascular technology, and
wow.
I love the coaching, but it's just it's not something mentally I can handle doing full time.
Mm-hmm. It's burdensome in some ways.
Burdensome. And for me to make a full-time income, I don't feel like is doable. What I would have to charge people, I feel like is outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather take money from big corporations like hospitals, instead of like the pockets of people who are struggling to survive, or, companies with our podcast who do advertisements, and I'll take money from the big companies and not from the pockets of our listeners. So.
Absolutely. We're getting to the end of our list of questions. I'm actually going to rephrase one of mine that I have.
Yes.
I was going to ask something about God, but I just want to go general on this and just ask you. So like, firstly, you've deconstructed. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you're like currently doing it, whatever.
I feel like we'll always be doing it at some.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's always something you're like,
it's so weird to be like, have you deconstructed?
Yeah.
No, we are
we're all
deconstructing
process.
forever.
Yes.
Forever. So I guess I just want to know, if you're willing to talk about it, what does your spiritual life look like now, or your spiritual journey, if at all?
I love your questions. Thank you so much for the
Isn't she amazing?
questions. Honestly, this is this type of stuff that I usually have to add at the end when they're like, "Is there anything else?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, these 3 other."
This is why I have Lola. She asks these deep, amazing questions.
Yeah. I am very, very spiritual. I'm not religious at all. I'm not, and I know I'm not bashing religion, and whatever works for everyone is it. But for me, I am very much connected to my intuition, which is really, really important for me to have because I was so disconnected forcibly from it as a child. Everything that I knew in my heart to be wrong, I was right in, and you were just constantly told that you were wrong. So for me, being connected to my intuition and being able to check in with my higher self at every turn and ask myself for the answers, or ask like Serena from the future, what would she do, is a really, really important part of my spirituality. I do meditate sometimes, but I have too much anxiety and ADHD and stuff. Like, it's just, it's just not always happening.
We get that more than you know.
Yeah, God bless everyone who like talks about meditation. I'm like, that's not for everyone.
Yep. Love that for you, but
so happy for you. Yeah. And there's so much in spirituality that even in this new age, yogas and hippie and cacao ceremonies and ecstatic dance and ayahuasca, I've done all of those things. I'm very open-minded and I will try anything, even if it seems a little culty, which, ayahuasca and things sitting around in a circle really is. But I hate judging things before you've actually experienced or at least observed it. So I've done a lot of those things, and I just keep coming back to the fact that healing for me is kind of just it's like this departure from your old self, and you get all caught up in all these new things that you found, and you're like, wow, and now I'm spiritual, and am I a healer? Do I have these gifts? Whatever. But then the true healing happens when you actually end up coming back to yourself, and you kind of go back to in a full circle of how you were as a child, the perfection that you were in the very beginning. And that's the type of person that you should be. We complicate it so much. We just love spirituality to be so difficult, wearing white and singing and chanting and hugging people and being in these ceremonies.
So many prayers, so many citations over and over.
So many mantras and stuff. And it's really not. It's really just coming back to who you are at your core and being okay with it and trusting yourself. And for me, in 2021, I packed up my car and took a drive across the US for 6 months. I drove everywhere, and I fired every therapist and coach and everything. I stopped following a bunch of people on social media, and I just wanted to find out who I was at my core. And those 6 months were just life-changing for me. I slept in my car. I hiked in mountains. I was with my dog the whole time. I met incredible people from all walks of life. And I was so connected to my intuition. I would just be driving in the middle of the night, should I pull over? Am I tired? And I'd just be like, yeah, pull over. And I would pull over in some random campground and wake up the next day, and I'm literally by a waterfall, surrounded in this incredible forest. And I would have just missed if I had just been going along. My trip was full of things like that. And everyone in the meantime, you're going to die and be murdered and, all this stuff. And Gabby Petito had just died, that famous thing had happened. And everyone was like, you're going to get murdered. And I was like, the odds of a serial killer right there, where I park my car in the forest is so low compared to you driving to work every day. So I should be worried about you.
Yeah, Gabby Petito was murdered by somebody she knew. So that's not a serial
related,
killer. So.
But yeah, no. Just the projections that people like to put on you, and when I came back, I was so connected to my intuition and I trusted myself so inherently. Not a single thing went wrong on that trip in 6 months being alone, just driving around the USA. Not once. If I could do it all over again, the only thing I would change is I would do it longer and go to more states, because it just happens. Everything was perfect. And so I came back understanding that nature is really a healing tool. And that's truly all that you need. You don't need all this other stuff. You don't need your special purity diet, and you don't need to wear white. You don't need to sit in a circle and sing songs. And, you don't need to be meditating for 45 minutes a day and wake up at 5 a.m. to recite the shit that people do is just ridiculous. So
agreed.
Yeah, it's so simple. It's just so simple. It's just connecting to yourself and your intuition and just listening to yourself and being able to trust yourself. But you can't trust yourself if there's deep, dirty, shameful things inside. And that's why so many people are looking for spirituality kind of all around them. And they create this persona of I'm a Akashic Records reader, and I'm a dolphin talker, and I'm a light worker and stuff. And
Is that a real thing?
It's a thing. This is Austin. These are real life scenarios and I'm just I don't care, but who are you at your core, And it's, I don't care if you're a dolphin talker, and I don't care if you're a light worker and a water healer.
Somebody put that on a t-shirt. I don't care if you're a dolphin talker.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that's a really, really long answer to your question, but I think it's really important.
That was perfect.
That's amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I feel like we both have similar journeys to that, where we tapped into our inner divinity.
Yeah.
And we trust ourselves, and our life is going really, really well because of that. Like, we're in a better space mentally, and our relationships, our families are thriving. And it's like, it's so simple. I didn't need a book. I didn't need a pew. I didn't need a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need any of it. I just needed to look inward and accept and grow.
Yeah. And I was told when I started to deconstruct, I was told that the devil was leading me astray, that this wasn't really God. I found out way later on that people were assuming that I would divorce my husband, especially after I came out as bisexual. They thought that just automatically meant that I was upping and leaving. That turned into some hilarious conversations, not between me, but between my husband and some other people. So that was pretty funny. But like, I look back on it and I'm like, I am the happiest. My life is going the best as it is in any time in my life right now than any time that I was within religion. Because when I was in religion, I was constantly stressed and having anxiety over like not living for God enough, or like not reading my Bible enough, not praying enough, not this, not that. And so like when I was able to literally find myself, which has been something I've wanted to do my whole life, like even in religion, I had this desire to find me, and I was searching for me, but I was searching in the wrong spots. I was searching through religion. And I'm going to plug this, but it's not coming out anytime soon, and I'll let you guys know when it does. But I just wrote a book and I'm almost done with it. And it's about my whole journey of coming out of religion and finding myself. And I love it. And it's just so good. I'm so excited for everyone else to like, and I want to hear other people's stories. Like, I want it to be encouraging for other people. Please, Serena, write a book.
I'm literally writing it right now. It's in process.
If you need a publisher, we have a great publisher that we can hook you up with. We don't make any commission off of it. They are like one of the best publishers. Choir. Just shout out to them right now. So if you need, unless you already signed with somebody, but.
So we're actually creating the new Bible. Your book, her book, everybody's book. We're making a new Bible together of our spiritual encounters.
Yes.
Because that's all anyway.
I'm so excited. So choir.
There's no Sky Daddy.
I'll give you more information afterwards. But choir, it's all about like people, like a lot of the books are coming from people who've deconstructed or have different, like vastly different spiritual outlooks and everything. It's just, they're wonderful. I'll give you more information afterwards, but I will absolutely plug them for you.
Amazing. Yeah, I would be happy to get that. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, two of our favorite people. Shout out Keith. Shout out Matthew. So, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to go back and look at my list because I'm ADHD.
You have one more question at the bottom.
I do. What is it? Zola, you ask it. I don't have mine pulled up.
How can we better help those escaping cults like this?
Oh, yes. Yeah. There's two parts to this, which I have to back up with that question because a lot of people ask me online and message that my sister's in a cult, my family's in a cult, like, how do I help them? And the short answer is you can't help them if they're in the cults. That's exactly. I just cannot stress that enough. Like, and the more you try to quote unquote help them and take them out, the farther that they'll dig their heels in and get even more extreme with their beliefs and their actions, which can end up being deadly or very harmful to themselves or other people around them.
So true.
So many times I'm just like, God bless you. That's on you. Keep the faith. But helping people when they're out is massive because you feel like a fish out of water. I have to speak from my own experience, of course, because that's been my life. But what I wish would have been there for me was someone to just explain to me that you're not a freaking weirdo and here are the actionable steps that you can take for optimum success in this life. When I left the cult at 18 and came to the USA, I did not exist in the school system. I was homeschooled. I was born abroad. I did not exist in the education system. So I think I'm just going to walk up to a university and be like, hey, I want to go to college today. How do I do it? And they looked at me like I was a crazy person.
Oh, man.
And so I had to get my GED to even place me in the education system, which of course my education at 18 was that of a middle schooler. I had to do remedial math classes at community college because all I knew was fractions. I didn't know anything else, like basic division, a couple fractions. And I spent probably the first 2 years of community college just learning history, learning math, learning science, all of these things that I was never taught in school. And I'm so thankful that by the time I did get to community college and university, I had some amazing counselors there who were able to guide me and who were really, really kind.
Amazing.
But I really wish there would have been someone there who could have been like, explain to me, these are the things you need to do. I didn't own a bank account. I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't exist in the schools. I was a literal alien. So I'm American. I look like everyone else. This is my country, supposedly, but I'm stepping foot in it at 18 for the first time. And like, what do I do? And I have nothing in common with everyone. When people say, oh, even to this day, when they're like, oh yeah, this happened to me in middle school, I'm like, I don't know what that means. You have to tell me how old you were, because I literally don't know what you're talking about when you say middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I first of all, I wish there was some sort of program. We actually, there are some ex-members of the cult that have created some nonprofits called Safe Passage Foundation and Victory Garden Sanctuary that do help people coming out of cults who are able to place them and give them the resources that we never had.
We will link those.
Yes, absolutely.
In the description, if any of our listeners out there need help with the realistic steps.
Specifically for cult and trafficking victims as well, because that's what we were as well, full on traffic. I grew up just begging on the streets in Brazil and in Mexico and in the US all the time. Hard labor, constantly working, singing in the streets, singing in restaurants, begging on the streets. That was my life, like using, that's how all the money came in, was using children. We were the workforce, which is why children were so encouraged to be born in the cult, because we were the workforce. We were literally the bread and butter of this cult. And then Jesus was coming back. So why bother for an education? We needed enough to read and to write, so we could read all of the cult propaganda and write our prophecies. And then that was it. Now you're on the street begging, or you're cooking food for 50 to 100 people, or you're taking care of children, because all the 18-year-olds are getting married and having children, starting 16 to 18. So I was at 10 years old. I was full-time taking care of children already, cooking for the communities, for the compounds. And yeah, that was my life. I just did not have any structure other than that. And then when there was any type of interest in, I loved reading. I had a very big imagination. I would often read contraband books. Then they would find like my John Grisham book that I just loved, and they'd burn it. They'd throw it in fire or something.
That's so funny.
So it was just so suppressed and so much control. But then when you get out of the cult, and there's just freedom everywhere, you almost go a little insane and crazy. And you get so lost and you don't know what to do, which is why a lot of people who leave cults end up in drugs and partying and alcoholics, or they end up joining some other weird religion or kind of extreme church or community or something, and then just falling right back into that because there's no structure and there's no one explaining and telling them, like, here's the steps that you have to do. Just the education portion for me was so hard and honestly traumatic. Like, I was not prepared at all. My first test in UT, this was in the days where we used Scantrons.
We still use those. They're going to be the death of me. God.
Oh, are they?
I hate Scantrons.
Oh man. Yeah. My professor called me aside and he's like, "Are you doing okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like at that time, of course, I was just not telling anyone what was going on. And he's like, "Yeah, because you're the only one that got a 0% in the test. Like you got every single question wrong." And I was like, "Huh? Why?" And he showed me the Scantron and I didn't know how to use a Scantron. I just pretended. So I circled all the bubbles that were on the outside by the 1, 2, 3 numbers. I didn't know you were supposed to circle the numbers going across. Like I didn't understand how it worked. So I was like, "Oh, I think it's this number." So I was going by the question and I'm like, "Oh, weird that they only have this one bubble here." So I didn't even use the Scantron properly.
That's so
like
sad.
that's just one example. Yeah, it's really sad when you think about it that I just had, and meanwhile, my parents are like, "Oh, you're never coming back." Like, nobody supported any type of higher education. So it was just kind of you out there figuring it out. And that's why counselors in colleges are so important because my story is so common. I mean, kids from marginalized communities all over this country are going through the same situations and the same thing. They're also, they want education and they want a better life and a better future, but they don't have the community around them to provide them. So they just kind of do it and then you get lost in it. So the counselors that are at colleges are really key. When I graduated UT, I actually bought a gift basket for my counselor and brought it to her office and I cried because I was just like, I don't think I would have even gotten through this college without you.
I love that. I'm trying to put this into perspective of like, this was 2002. So I was 12 when you escaped. I don't even think MapQuest was a thing, guys. Like we are still functioning like with dial-up internet. Wi-Fi is not a thing. Cell phones, like
writing down directions.
Yes. Like cell phones aren't a thing. I didn't get one until I was like 16. I think we're still in the beeper age. Maybe cell phones are just about to start coming out. So how do you find resources? Because when I'm looking for resources, I'm going to Google, I'm going to my cell phone, I'm going here, I'm going there. Like you don't even know what a public library is at this point. So like I'm trying to put myself in your shoes of how lost you would feel and it's stressing me out. Like I can't imagine. Oh, that's insane.
Yeah, it's just talking to random people that I would meet. And a lot of it was same thing, just lying and hiding and pretending I knew that I was talking about something. And that I would hear like, "Oh, and in college this," and I'd be like, "Huh, okay, this college, the one down the street." They'd be like, "Oh no, Rice University." At this time I was in Houston. And my friends that I was partying with in the club were all going to college and school. So I got a lot of information from them and I was like, okay, so I need to go to college. That's a thing that people do here. And then when I went to community college, they were like, "Yeah, you don't exist. So you need to take the GED." And then from there, I got more information, but I just started like doing it because that's what everybody else was doing. And then I understood.
To survive.
I was just mimicking everything around me. Yeah. Whoever was partying, that's what I was doing. If we were all going to college, now I'm going to college. We're all taking drugs. I'm taking drugs too. Yeah, it was full on survival mode for probably just my entire 20s, honestly, was just full on survival mode and experimental mode, just trying everything, like eating fast food, like what is Ben and Jerry's? I had this Jack in the Box addiction.
Oh, I love me some Jack in the Box. Heck yeah.
Those curly fries are so good.
I love it.
But we had such strict rules of eating in the cult. Everything was controlled. We had to eat according to the Bible. Our shower times were monitored. We had to save water. The amount of pieces of toilet paper we used we were told by Berg to only use one sheet for number 1 and 2 sheets for number 2.
Two sheets. Hey, no way.
I was like, that's why you're a dirty old man. Like, I never did that.
That's why you got it.
Yep.
Like,
Nasty
just
fuck.
Everything was controlled. So then I also had all of this crazy freedom to do whatever I wanted. So it was both like enjoying my freedom, but then also like, okay, but what am I actually supposed to be doing in this life? Like, I did not know who I was because I was so used to other people telling me who I was and what to do.
Yeah.
And in college and university really helped me get to a schedule and start applying myself and being responsible for myself, like waking up on time or waking up early to study, all of these things that I didn't know I had to do by myself, because growing up in the cult, we were woken up by whistles and guitar playing and people screaming in our faces. That's how we woke up. I didn't know that I was supposed to set an alarm and wake up at a certain time. I learned that in college. I learned how to be a normal functioning human thanks to my education. That's what's so much, it's so much more than just reading and getting your diploma. It's learning how to apply yourself. It's learning how to be responsible. It's learning how to be an adult. And those are the things that college also gave me.
Yeah. I can see that. I want to backtrack a little bit before we end, because I had a question that popped in my head, and we're really backtracking because you said you escaped in 2002, or you left in 2002.
Yeah.
Davidito, so Ricky, he left, if I'm remembering correctly, 2004.
No, that's when he died.
That's
when he died in 2004. He left 2001.
Okay,
he left around 2000. He left before
so he
me.
left prior to you. I was mixing those dates up. So I was wondering, so did him leaving in 2000, 2001, did that kind of give you strength or like encouragement to get out? I had a feeling that she's shaking her head yes for those just listening, but it had a feeling of that because when I escaped Michael, I escaped in 2011. And a few years later, another guy escaped, and he was actually kind of like the linchpin of the whole thing because he was the worship leader. And so after he left, like the whole thing came crumbling down, which was like perfect. But he told me that he kept telling himself, if Lacey can leave, so can I. If Lacey can leave, so can I. And so I've kind of seen it in other groups as like a ripple effect. And so I wasn't sure if that was something you had experienced or those around you.
Yeah, he was instrumental in me leaving, more so than my older sister, more so than anyone, because when he left, he refused to lose contact with me. So even when we moved to Brazil and they stayed in Japan, we were still writing letters, literally snail mail sending letters. He would write me for my birthday. So when email came around in 2000 and I was still in the cult, he asked me for my email address, and he would send me emails secretly. And by that time, when he had left, he was so vilified and by his own mother, and they were calling him a demon, part of the Vandari, him and my older sister. And he would email me and be like, "Did you read that bullshit they're saying about me?" And I was like, "Yeah." This was at the time where I was like, "I'm not doing this prayer and prophecy thing. Like, I'm not going to pray against my sister and the guy that I grew up with as my brother. Like, that's just not going to happen at all." And that's when I knew, like, I was like, I'm out. So now it was just a matter of time, but he was really instrumental in constantly pushing me and constantly encouraging me. Like, every time something came out about him, he was like, "You know me, you know, this is a lie." And he's like, and all the time he was like, "You can come stay with me. I want to help you. You can get out. I love you and your sisters. You got to get out." So I was so lucky to see him. Thankfully, he did see me after I left very early on. I saw him in 2003, right before he died.
Wow.
And I was 1 year out, did not want to talk about my life.
And here comes Ricky.
And here comes Ricky with a lunch meeting in California, sitting down like, "What's going on? We help you? How can we get your family out?" Like, and I was just like, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't care. I'm doing fine. Like, I'm working in this club. Everything's great, So I really didn't want to have that conversation with him, but I could tell even then that he was in a lot of pain. I could tell he was really struggling, and he was really, I could tell he wanted to do something and he just didn't know what to do. And he felt so responsible for us. And I'm just so glad. Of course, like, I can't be like, I wish I would have done this. Like, no, but I'm just glad that he saw me out of the cult.
Yeah.
That he knew that he had essentially saved my life and my future and had a big part of it. And he knew because we talked about it.
That gives me chills, like legit chills.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the one solace that I have, that he did see me out of the cult, and he knew exactly like you said. Like, my older sister is one thing, she's 7 years older, but then like the rest of us, my family, were pretty close, and he knew. He was like, you're out. It's just a matter of time with your sisters. And I was like, yeah. And he already knew, like, he had done his part. And it was just, and he was right. It was just a matter of time. And it was just,
oh, that's so good.
Out from the cult, every single one. Yeah.
That's really powerful. I'm really glad. I am sorry for the loss of your friend. He was an important person, and
he really was. Yeah.
I am happy that he got out and that he got to know that you also were barreling down that journey as well.
I wish he could see now what society has become, is because as much as bad as society is in a lot of ways, and the internet has given us an immense amount of possibilities for exposing.
We're drowning in information.
Yeah, and especially for exposing things like this. Like, for him to see all of, he had just, YouTube was in its infancy, and he had posted his YouTube video. And for him to see just how much exposure exposing this cult has gotten over the years, and how much people are fighting, and how many people have gotten out, and how different it has looked. And I wish he could see that, because I know he wanted that so desperately.
Well, and with all the good that Serena does too, that automatically honors him, whether or not she means for it to. Yeah. Automatically, it honors something and brings his soul forward. So
yeah,
that's one thing.
It really does. I was actually literally just thinking about this the other day, because it was actually just the anniversary of his passing very recently. And I was like, he's pretty much responsible for everything that has happened, like major milestones in my life, because the whole reason that I started healing was because I couldn't talk about my family. And why couldn't I talk about my family? I had to talk about my family because they were in the news constantly. I would turn on, we were on CNN, my family in particular, CNN, Larry King Live, AMC, E! Entertainment, Montel, Oprah, everything. I couldn't get away from it. So I had to deal with, I was forced, his actions forced me to deal with my past. And in turn, it completely changed the trajectory of my life, because that now I'm talking about my life. I'm able to help others. And if it wasn't for him, I would probably still be in my corporate job telling everyone that my parents worked for the Red Cross or I was an Army brat, So
I get it. I can't fault you for doing that, because like, who wants to? This is a heavy conversation. This is heavy topics. I'm trying to think, like, if I was standing there and somebody was like, this was my childhood, I'd be like, I don't even know what else to say. Like, how do we have this
Put that back in the box?
Like,
yeah.
I think I just respond with like, that's a lot. Thank you for telling me. I don't know how to respond. Like, I need time to process, and then like we can reconvene.
I need to go lay down.
That's usually the answer. Yeah. And to be fair, I don't lead with conversations like, I grew up in a cult.
I know.
Of course not.
I wasn't thinking that.
But yeah, you also gauge people too. Like it's a privilege for people to be able to hear my story. I don't share it with everyone. And it's a privilege for me to trust people with my story and the information that I give. So I definitely gauge like how far in. I usually start with, I grew up in a religious hippie commune, and then see how it goes from there. And it just really depends on the relationship with that person. But everyone that I've shared my story to has just been in absolute shock, but there's never been any negative blowback or responses. People are just exactly like you said, like, thank you for sharing that. And then usually they will turn around either a day later or even at the same time and be like, well, this happened in my family as well. And we're dealing with that, like deep shit. And those are honestly the type of conversations I love to have with people. Like when you really break down those barriers of us all trying to pretend we have this amazing life. I just love getting straight to the deep shit. It's definitely the trauma.
Yes.
The trauma
Yes.
too. So tell me.
Exactly.
Tell me where everything went wrong.
Yeah. But then also, like, you have to laugh at the absurdity of life in general, you know, and you have to be able to laugh at your experiences at some point. I mean, like, how fucking stupid that we were woken up with guitars every day and we had to sing a song, and every day we sit down and sing, thank the Lord for the food, thank the Lord for the family. Like, how fucking
God.
it's funny, you know, like, but you have to be able to laugh at this stuff. So, yeah, it's important that you've got to live your life with some humor as well. And that's what the true healing is as well, when you can honor the really deep, dark, sad shit, but then you can also laugh at the absurdity of it all.
For sure.
Last question, unless Lola has another one. Do you think the group has actually changed? Or is it all for, publicity or, to cover their asses? It's saving face. There you go.
Never changed when I was in it. It was just, and they literally told us too, like, well, the systemites are out to get us. We know that we've done nothing wrong, but but we have to be, they called it deceivers yet true. So we're going to change all our rules on the outside, but on the inside, we're still the wonderful family of love that you've always known us to be, which is disgusting.
Oh my gosh.
But at this time, it's just an online church with honestly a bunch of old members, typically our parents and kids who started having babies at 16, 17, and they just don't know any other life besides that. So I'm sure now their practices have changed because I know they're in smaller communities and people hold day jobs and stuff, but they're still full on tithing. I know parents of some of my friends who are literally still sending money to Karen Zerby and still tithing their income. And these are people who are now on retirement, who are like, our parents are in their 70s and 80s. And they're giving Karen Zerby their money still.
God, that makes me so mad.
It makes me so mad. And it makes me so...
How do you know she's not dead yet? Like, just out of curiosity, because she's old. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but she's not up there in her years. So
she's old. I think it's going to happen soon. I'm sure those who are closer and people who have more information will let us know. I still, I grew up in that circle, so I still know a lot of people from that circle that I will get that information pretty fast. But yeah, it's knocking on death's door for her, for sure.
I don't know what I believe when it comes to an afterlife, but there are times when I just really wish that there was that moment, and maybe there is, I don't know, but that you go to the afterlife and you're standing before whoever it is and you have to face your sins. Like, I wish I was a fly on the wall for Karen Zerby when that day comes. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I said what I said. Don't at me. I don't like that woman at all whatsoever.
I don't like that woman. Period.
That's the thing too. I'm like, as far as what happened to me and names and stuff, I was like, at this point, who's going to come after me? So is someone going to sue me for real? Like, I hope somebody sues me. I hope someone tries. I have all these pictures from my childhood, and publications are always asking, do you own these pictures? I was like, I own them now. I'm literally in them, but did I take them? No, but I would love for someone to try to sue me and be like, I took this photo. I'd be like, great. So you copped a child abuse.
Yes, let's go to court. The judge would love to see you. Thank you very much.
We would love to have this conversation.
Oh gosh, that'd be crazy.
And the 300,000 of us who are surviving this cult too.
Yes, day in and day out, trying to recover. Any other questions for Serena? This is so good. I love it.
This was a really good conversation. I don't have any other questions. I do want to say thank you for trusting us with your story and for agreeing to meet with us again.
Guys.
Your transparency is priceless, to be honest.
Yeah.
Your story is amazing. I'm so happy that you got out with not only your life, but, your soul still, and that you were able to tap into your inner divinity and create a life that you're proud of.
Yeah.
And that others can be inspired by. So just thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, these were incredible questions. I really enjoyed my time here, you guys. So your podcast is amazing. I've been to
Thank you.
I love it.
Listen.
I dragged Lola into this. I was like, we need to do this turn this into a podcast. I was like, Lola, come on. Let's do this.
You didn't drag me. I came willingly. I said, put the leash on. Let's go.
Yeah, she did. I sent her a Facebook message and I was like, want to start a true crime podcast? She was like, yes, please, let's do it.
It's amazing.
So, it was pretty cool. But well, that's our show, guys. This was such good conversation and we had some laughs along with serious talk. So I don't think we really need the palate cleansers today, but we will see you guys next week for another episode. And if you want to follow Serena, we'll have all her information down in the show notes and you can look at her website or any of her publications as well as her social media. If she wants us to share that, whatever she wants us to share will be in the show notes. But until then, go touch grass. Like Serena said, nature is the best healer. So
go hike naked.
Go hike naked.
Go hike
Come
naked.
on, girl, go on. Get your tits out. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Deadly Faith is brought to you by Choircast Network. It's produced by Lacey Bean and Lola Robbins and audio engineered by Eric Cowell. Thanks for listening.